So right now, this webinar is going to focus mainly on geofencing. It'll be just very quick. It'll go over geofencing, importance of geofencing, if it works, how it can work for you. Every business is going to be different. And also what you're looking for out of geofencing will also be different. So I'm going to go over some of the best practices, some generics. If you have questions, please do not hesitate. Like I said, reach out and chat. I'll be happy to help. Pardon me. Answer those questions when they come along, or at the end. Obviously, we will have time. I will kind of keep this as concise as possible. But at the same time, other than geofencing, if you have just some questions that you would like answered about the system, I'll be happy to do that at the end as well. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So geofencing, which you might also hear me say, and I apologize, I might say landmarks. That is an issue that I'm trying to get over from my last company. They call geofencing landmarking. So if I do say that, that's my reasoning, or what I'm actually referencing is actually geofencing. But what is a geofence? In its simplistic form, it's just a virtual perimeter. So that can be used in a variety of different ways. Mainly what geofencing is used for is specific areas of interest, which could be good or bad. Various things, as you can see, like headquarters, if you have multiple sites that your drivers go to, especially fuel sites, if you want to know. You're also looking at possible potential hostile customers. I have seen it used before. Employee neighborhoods, again, that's going to be contingent upon if you allow your drivers to take home the vehicles. Might be other things. Pardon me, I have a nagging cough. I do apologize. Other things. So if you don't want them to go to certain areas, if there are certain service places that you do not want them to go, or you want them to go, those are the types of areas that you would like to or would want to geofence. The geofence will help you be alerted when your vehicles travel through those areas. So that way you have a better understanding of what your vehicles are doing. How can you geofence? So within our system actually defaults to a circular geofence. This starts off at about 0.02 miles. It can go as low as, 0.04, different, as small as 0.02, but as large as 18.6 miles. On most average circular geofences actually work best. But in this regards, we also have a polygon feature to get actually more specific. Our polygon feature gives you 6 vertices. And this way you can actually drag those vertices to make it more specific to an area that you would like to be alerted to. Specifically, which I will show you here in a little bit, is if you have a geofence or an area that you would butt up next to or infringe upon a major traveled highway, major travel road. You certainly don't want to be alerted each time a vehicle passes through, and it be a false geofence, so to speak. Not saying that it would be a false geofence, but it's more of a nuisance where they're actually passing through. They're not actually stopping or staying in those areas. So along with that, with the best practices of what I usually like to advise our customers with geofencing is you're going to want to keep it simple, specifically of the importance of what you're looking for. You don't want to go too hard, too fast with adding multiple geofences. I always like to say keep it very slow. That way you're not going to be bombarded with the alerts, because I do know, as much as some of you may know, specifically with our, with our disturbance alert. It's a great alert, but at this time, if you have multiple vehicles, you can get bombarded with alerts. That becomes an annoyance and it loses its value. So when it comes to creating alerts, start with your most important things that you really want to be alerted for. But also when creating those alerts, you are going to want to keep a easy way of understanding those alerts coming up for those geofences. So like I'm showing here above you, a specific naming convention. Now I'm just throwing some examples of what I've used in the past. obviously make something up that works for you. In this instance, if you know a specific customer to be a hostile customer, maybe you just might use the abbreviation, excuse me, HC. Fuel sites, FS, obviously service centers, SCs. Now, that doesn't mean you have to use my naming convention. You could use the absolute longest one that you want. You could use the name of the location that you're looking at is perfectly fine. So like Home Depot, you can use specific addresses, anything of that nature. But again, it's really toward what is going to work for you and what you're going to understand best. And other than that, literally what it comes to for the takeaways of all this, as I talked about, is, you know, the easiest thing to do with your geofencing is to, I lost my train of thought. I do apologize. Really start slow, keep it simple. And from there, you're going to manage your alerts. So when it comes to alerts is where I was going with this, is understand how many alerts you are getting. It will be also contingent upon how many vehicles that you have in the field with us. So you're going to want to play around with it. So as I'm showing you this, I'm going to show you actually how to do that in regards to the system. I will be jumping in here very shortly, but just in the geofencing basics of themselves, does anyone have any questions in regards to just some of the brief information I've gone over at this time? Getting some no's, so not hearing anyone, so perfect. I will jump out of this. So I'm using a demo account. So right now, I'm just going to jump in. So I do apologize if there's a slight delay. But to set up a geofence, when you are in the system, you're going to use the left-hand side. And I just want to make sure I did this last time. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So on the left-hand side, we have our little admin panel. Where to go is you're going to go to the geofences part. And on top of this, if you have groupings, obviously at the top, you can specify specific groupings. In the standpoint, some of you might not have, you might just have one specific group, but I just wanted to point that out to you. Now, when it comes to specifically adding landmarks, obviously we have a couple already in here. As you can see, we have a couple that says do not service. There's also one in service crew and in family fleet, but you also look at specific areas, main office, and obviously a Houston metro area. So keeping in mind, this might be something where you don't want your trucks to go outside of the radius. So that way you're going to be alerted if a vehicle enters that, or excuse me, exits that radius. So again, kind of gives you the idea of what might work for you. Obviously, this is kind of tailored toward a service company, but I do know we have all different types of industries. So really think about what works best for you. And I can certainly help you with that and identify those. But to specifically add a geofence, obviously within the system, top right-hand corner, you're just going to click on geofence. And I'm going to use, mind you, I'm actually populated in Arizona because that's where I hail from. So this is where it's automatically pulling from. I'm going to throw in an address here. This is going to take me to a site that I want to geofence. Now, as I stated, this might be something that you're going to be using of what is going to work best. So in this standpoint, since I usually like the polygon feature, since I've added one before, it automatically defaults to the polygon feature. For you, if you go ahead and add a geofence, it might actually default to a circle. Now, mind you, about 80% of polygons, excuse me, the geofences will work with circles rather than polygons. But again, when it comes to high traveled areas, I usually like to default to the polygon feature. So this is a perfect example. This might be a fuel site area that you just want to know that your guys are traveling to, or maybe you don't want them traveling to. Now, the idea behind this is a major freeway. So if you default even at a 0.06 radius for a circle, you could get vehicles traveling through this area that you're going to get alerted to. That's not going to help you. So in this standpoint, in this example, I'm going to use a polygon feature using the 6 vertices. I can then actually drag and drop. So you can just click on little circles and I can physically drag and drop to the exact area that I want to be alerted on if a vehicle travels. So for me, this might be a perfect area. I want to make sure that if they enter in this area at any point in time, I want to be alerted. Again, you can get as small as you want if you literally want all the way down just to the fuel site itself. That is by all means, you can do with that what you want. Me personally, part of a best practice, which I'll give another example here in a bit, I usually like to make it a little bit larger. I did mention this in my last webinar that there is a stopgap, so to speak, within all of GPS, is GPS drift. It happens with all of GPS tracking. Doesn't matter what provider you go with, GPS drift is inevitable and can happen. Thus, you're going to have some variance. So you could have some sway of the GPS location. Can be accurate as up to 3 feet, but when you have some disturbance, if you're near overpasses, underpasses, metal overhangs of gas stations, that can distort the GPS signal. So just in my example, I would probably do something a little bit farther along the roads. I would understand though, when creating this, that I am considering the roads around that might be traveled, but at least I want to know if a vehicle travels into this area that they are not stopping in this geofence. So being alerted to an entry and exit as quickly as possible is obviously ideal. If I see an enter and then I don't see an alert for an exit within 2 minutes, then I know he's probably stopping within that area and I'm going to go investigate further. So just along with that, I might put in here is the naming convention down at the bottom. Obviously, once you have your address in, you're going to want to enter in a name. So I might mark this Circle K. CRS. So maybe I do not want my vehicles going to the specific Circle K. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. This is going ahead and actually add it. You'll get a nice big thumbs up once it's added. So now that you can see in here, I can click on my landmark and it's going to, geofence, and it's going to take me right to there. Again, from here, you can edit this as needed. You can obviously click out of this and edit when needed. At the same time, some feature that actually most don't know is I can actually go to the alerts and actually click enable alerts, so you will not get an alert for this landmark. So that is one of the most highly regarded secrets that I don't think we give out to our customers. So I wanted to make sure you are aware of that. You can turn them on and off for each specific landmark. Now, there isn't a specific where you can do multiple at once. You do have to click on each one in particular. But again, this gives you the option to create multiple landmarks at once, but maybe you want to start slow by turning certain landmarks on. Maybe it's seasonal, certain customers, certain areas. You get the picture. Now, the other geofence example that I was going to give was what I have been personally experiencing with some of our customers if you allow your drivers to take the vehicles home. So areas of interpretation of you don't necessarily want to invade privacy, but the idea is to ensure that your drivers are not using your vehicles after hours or on the weekends or when they shouldn't be. So in this standpoint, I'm going to take a specific area here of interest, and I took this at random, so there is no relevance to this, but if I'm going to go ahead and add a geofence, throw in my address. So for an example, let's just say this is a worker's house and you allow them some freedom of using the vehicle. So my recommendations and best practices when it comes to geofencing a neighborhood is to be a little bit larger, but understand maybe highly traveled areas. For instance, this gives the worker a little bit of freeway within their own area, but more importantly, maybe you allow them or you want to be sure that they're not using the vehicle in the fashion that they shouldn't be using it. For instance, I'm not going to want to get alerts if they move the truck down the street. Maybe there's a block party. Maybe there's doing major construction. That's alerts that you don't need. So in this standpoint, whether it's a circle or polygon feature, I might use a larger area. So as long as they stay within that area, I don't mind with what they're doing with the vehicle. Again, depends upon your business, it depends upon the industry, but that's where I would be looking at or advising our customers to do so. On top of that, you could also get more specific. If you want to do the polygon feature, maybe it's the entire neighborhood. So you don't want the highly traveled areas, but you're going to want the greater area of where that worker is. Maybe you don't want them servicing that area, whatever it might be. Again, I'm just throwing out a lot of examples, but this is what I would do where if I was in your shoes, I allowed drivers to take their vehicles home. I'm going to give them the luxury of being able to use the vehicle within that area, short, small trips, but anything outside of that, any major highways, I don't want them going on. So that's where my example best practice would be for that standpoint. Again, you could label this however you want, maybe a coworker's name, coworker's house, or whatever that might be. Again, a naming convention there is going to help. It just depends upon how many eyes that you have on it. So if it's just one or two people, fleet manager, admin, owner, you could use the exact employee's name, but the more users you have, I might suggest a naming convention so it's across the board easy. Other than that, that is pretty much the basis of the geofencing. My best practices, I wanted to keep it about 20 minutes of an actual presentation, but then give the floor to you all who have joined for questions that I could answer, since it is a 45-minute webinar here that I'm presenting. But I wanted to get your take, your questions, if any of you have anything in regards to geofencing. And then we'll wait after that. And if you have any other questions regarding the system, I'd be happy to answer. So I will give the floor to you all.
We don't have any questions about the geofence.
Okay. Anyone have questions regarding geofencing? Got a couple no's. Well, if no one's going to throw anything about geofencing, I am happy to go into anything else or any other questions you might all have.
What we're basically using this for is to do mileage reports
Okay.
on company vehicles and non-company vehicles. So that's kind of our interest in it, is creating a report from, say, like 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 in the afternoon of how much mileage they actually did for the day.
Great question. I will be very blunt. We don't have customization yet. That is actually on our docket. It's actually one of the things that I've asked for, to be able to have that ability to do certain timeframes. So just like what you're asking, we can only help with full days right now. I'll be completely honest. So if you actually just go into the reports feature, obviously there are a couple different reports. Trip history will give you the actual trips, but what I was using most of was going to be the vehicle use. So this is where you're going to get your total miles. And again, you can customize that per day. Now, again, the timing side, like you said, you're looking at it between certain hours of the day. Unfortunately, we don't have that yet. That is a big lift, obviously, from where we have architected, but it is on the docket to be added.
Okay. So there is a way that we can look
for the daily total.
Correct. So let's just say if you're looking just for, I want Monday through Friday. So I'm going to look at it. You have to do it manually. It's not scheduled. We don't have that ability yet.
right.
Again, on the docket, I think I said this last time, I've put in probably the most JIRAs within the first year I was here than the entire company has for a while. So there's a lot of things that I would love to do that would reflect best for you all.
Right.
But in this standpoint, really easy. So I would probably take the date, the 6th through the 10th. So you only want Monday through Friday. You're going to let it run. Now this is going to run for my whole entire install crew. but you're going to get down for each vehicle. You're going to get the total miles, obviously the days driven.
For that
And
week.
For that week, that is correct.
I mean, you could go back and drill down per day if you wanted to, and where they went, if we can go back in time and actually look at what they did on each, individual day if we wanted to.
Correct. So
Okay.
you can drill it down to one day in itself, if you're really looking for specifically that. But something that I think I touched on the last webinar, but if you want to get more of a visualization. So in this standpoint, you're going to get your daily totals. Now, let's just say Nick's F-150. I want to know what he did for the day on 3/6. So I can go to the dashboard. Apologies. So I'm going to look for Nick here. So I do apologize. 24 hour van. Where's Nick's over here? Here we go. So for Nick's F-150. Now, this is where the trails features comes in. So I'm going to click on trails. This is going to bring me to obviously his trails, but this is where I'm going to be looking for. So if I'm looking for a specific day, I think we were looking at March 5th. If I was not mistaken. So this is the entire day visually of what Nick did for the day.
Where
So
and
now
what
you
he did. Yeah.
Correct. So you
That's
can
good.
correlate that with his mileage to understand why did he have 90 miles under his belt that day? Well, we can now correlate his jobs of where he had to go to outside of Houston.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Wherever that might be.
Yeah.
And just to further drill down on that, because I know other customers have asked about this as regards to just vehicle infractions, hard braking, hard acceleration, speeding. If you click on each trip itself, you can actually get a breakdown of what we have recorded for each trip. So I want to know where he was rapid acceleration, where he was, over speed limits. So it helps give you a little bit more representation of not only what the driver's doing, but also if he's doing the right things. So a lot of things, like I said in the last webinar also as well, and I'm sorry I'm going into real detail on this, is also understanding like rapid accels. You might be seeing that, but I might look at the areas that he might be looking at it. So is he jumping out onto the highway? And here it's the other way around. Could be cupping out, could be, a green light. Maybe he's trying to get in front of traffic. Again, you can make your own assumptions, but that's
Right.
how I look at it. I do a little bit more investigation, especially where he's speeding. Oh, I did not mean to do that. Where he's speeding. Are we on the highway? That might be a little bit more acceptable because I know at least in Arizona, when it says 65, it means you go 95. And that's everyone. So needless to say, just, giving you as much detail as possible here.
Yeah, that'll work for us. That's what we were missing from the other one. So yeah, this will work.
Fabulous. And I believe in reports, so under vehicle use, nope, it wasn't vehicle use.
The trip for that day.
Where are you?
Now they were driving on that trip also. Were they speeding? Were they slamming on the brakes?
Yep.
Don't put one on my car.
So I will be honest when it comes to the information that we have that you get with harsh braking, hard acceleration. It is industry average with what we pull. So even small things, which is where I'm going with this, is how the device is installed as well. So, 99% of our devices are plugged directly into the port. I do know some customers use a extension cable or a Y cable, also known as a bypass cable. They can be tucked up under the dash out of the way. That's great. However, I would go a step further to make sure that they're securely fastened to either a wiring harness or better yet, chassis or something that's rigid up under the dash steering column. Due to the fact, if I were to start, even on a slow start, that device falls, that could be a hard acceleration. Vice versa.
Yeah, you have to take it all with a grain of salt. So
exactly. And that's pretty much everything. The idea of GPS in general, I think, has gotten away, where it should be a source of information that helps you do your job. It doesn't take over your job. As much as we all would love to do that, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I actually have one. Um, Curious as to if there is something that we may have done wrong or what the system did. But
Okay.
we run 9 trucks, and I had some that told me we had an average speed of over 400 miles an hour, and they went from 200,000 miles to over 1,000,000 miles.
So, question for you on that, and we might need to take this offline. Was it very recent, or has this been months ago?
Just recently in the past couple weeks. And what I did is I did go through
Okay.
and I pulled everyone's and I reset them, and everything seems to be going fine. I just want to make sure that there's not something that we did or the setup did wrong that's causing these guys to show an average, 400 mile an hour.
No, to be honest, again, full candor. I don't like, you know, basically given fluff. I'll be just straightforward. Is I do know we did have some carrier issues. Now, this is outside of our control, from our provider, that had some issues with the devices connecting. As recent as Monday of this week, and as in the past 2 weeks, we've had some issues with them, which we've had to figure out. Which I think the result has been, from what I have heard, is what you're exactly talking about. Is when you were looking at your reports, all of a sudden you're going, wait, how does a vehicle go 900 miles and we have a top speed, average of 400 miles per hour? That doesn't make any sense. Again, if it happens again, I would definitely say reach out to me. Maybe we could look at what might be happening with the devices, maybe where they're traveling into. Again, there's a lot of different factors that I could go into that could be the cause. Like I said, GPS drift can be one of the biggest causes that most people don't understand, especially just parking a truck at night under a metal overhang inside a warehouse. That could cause issues, because if you go into the garage and we never see the ignition off and we start seeing drift, well, that's going to cause issues. So, again, take it for a grain of salt. I don't want to throw and make you worried, but yeah, that is quite out of the ordinary. And resetting the devices like you did, I think, is just the first troubleshooting step that we always ask to do. But if it has since quelled itself, I wouldn't think too much into it. But if it happens again, please reach out to me, and either I'll look into it. I will look into it. Whether we need to get support involved, we'll definitely get that.
Gotcha. So just a hiccup in the system, technology, it's wonderful.
Exactly.
I did have one other thing, and maybe others here could be interested in this one, but are there any plans in the future for these GPSs to be able to alert like office personnel of oil changes or maintenance, stuff like that?
So we already have it in the system. However, with that being said, it's only push notifications right now. It is on our plan this year to have SMS and email alerts to be going out. Right now, it is just within the system. So I'm glad you asked. Is if you're looking at my screen, we actually have alerts that pop up here for maintenance, which is what you're talking about. If you actually have our mobile app as well, if you don't, please do download it. It's the same credentials of your login that you can log into. That's where you're going to get your push notifications. Now, with that being said, this is actually a great segue, which I was going to do next month's webinar strictly on maintenance, but I'll touch on it here for you for right now. Within the maintenance feature, when we did turn it on, we did not turn alerts on. Because we didn't want to have customers get bombarded with false alerts, since their service might not have been set up or added within the system. But when you do go into the services, obviously go into maintenance. You can click on said vehicles. You can actually go in and add maybe past oil changes, any type of services that you might have done. You can add it in the system, along with actually adding receipts. So we're just using this as an example. the obviously the everything will not match, but this just gives you an example of what we can look at. So you can actually have the actual receipt, but then you can select what it was. You can select if it was like a tire rotation, maybe tire fix, plug, regular tune-up, a major service, 30K, 50K, 100K, something like that. You can add specific notes in. So that just gives you the ability for past maintenance, but for your future maintenance, on the left-hand side of my screen, you'll see under the details here, you can default the service level. So at this point, if you are brand new going into the system and none of you, or if you have done this, fantastic, you're going to want to edit this. I'm going to specifically say, let's just say I'm starting to use full synthetic in the F-150 and I don't need to change it for 10,000 miles. This will automatically update my current service based upon my odometer reading. So once I do that, I can then hit save. This will automatically update accordingly due from my last service, which again, that's the key, is if we go back to this last one, I want to make sure where my last service was put in works with my current mileage. Because then at that point, you'll start receiving those alerts via push notifications as well as on the dashboard when you're logged in. The only caveat to all of this is once you have your maintenance put in, you have your service intervals put in and your last service, you're going to want to go to your profile, go to your preferences, and then I'm going to want to make sure, which is defaulted right now to off. So just as a customer, if you are logged in, you might see this turned off. Obviously, this is demo count, so it's turned on, but I'm going to want to edit this and make sure this is turned on for maintenance. You'll start receiving alerts.
Awesome. That's exactly what I was looking for. That's what my boss has been bombarding me for. So you just answered my questions.
That's great. Yeah, this is so that my two biggest brainchilds actually when I first got hired on just over a year ago was our idling and our maintenance program. So obviously having these I'm obviously ecstatic. So the fact that we do have them just goes to show that we are progressing, we are moving forward, and I really want this system to benefit everyone as a whole. Yes, there are going to be a lot of outliers, but I do take everyone's constructive criticism, as I like to call it, or if they have specific feature requests, like we're talking about the customization of reports, but also the customization of alerts, which, like I said, should be coming at minimally for alerts. But the ability to set timeframes of the alerts is I only want to be alerted during the day for, unplugged device should be 24 hours, but geofence entry and exit, maybe I only want during the day. I don't care over the weekend. Vice versa with the rest of these, that'll give you the time frame of you can focus more on, specifically like disturbance alert that we have. I could care less during the day if I get a disturbance alert because we know guys are getting in and out of their vehicles. Our techs are getting in and out. So maybe I only care about at night, depending upon if you have day business versus night business, but you get where I'm going. Any other questions?
Can I jump in and ask a question back about the geofences? Is there any kind
Of course.
that goes with that? Like, can I see the history of time was spent in each geofence?
Great question. Right now, we don't have a specific report. Now, to see though, what alerts have been triggered. This is also one of the reports, along with the customization that I've asked for, is a specific geofence report. That will include time spent at the geofence inside if they were possibly passing through, but how many times they visited a specific geofence. So that is the future. For right now, the only way to see those alerts that do come up is you're going to go to your alerts tab. I'm going to click on sort and filter. Me personally, I just go ahead and clear all, and then I'm just going to click on geofence entry and exit, and I'm going to apply my filters. From here is where you're going to be able to see your entry and exits for those specific vehicles. This is also why I stated prior to having a naming convention. So not only just for your landmarks, but also for your vehicles. because if you don't have vehicle IDs, they will default to year, make, and model. It's going to be real fun to try and figure out if you have 5 Jeep Liberties, which Jeep Liberty was the one causing the entry or exit. So having that naming convention, it can be as simple as vehicle 1, 2, or 3. It could be the last 4 of the driver's employee ID number. You could do it maybe specific on the last 4 of the VIN. Again, I'm just throwing out examples, but something that I would do. But this is where you're going to see it. Now, as if I remember correctly, our geofence report is on the docket for this year to be added. It's not going to be until later this year, unfortunately, but I know that was one of the biggest things that I wanted as apart from the customization was to have a geofence report so you can understand exactly what you were asking.
Perfect. And when you went into those filters, could you also filter by vehicle if you were most interested in one particular person?
Unfortunately, no. That's again one of the limitations that I have, asked for more clarity, which is part of the geofence report, is to be able to specify. I don't want to go through, whatever it might be, 50, 60, 70, 100 alerts just to find the one that I'm looking for, or specifically, if I want to look at a certain time of day. That's the best that I can do at this point, but that's the reason why I put so much importance on that geofence report to come out this year.
Fair enough. I am looking forward to that report.
So am I. Yeah, best practice, usually what I would advise is if you know the day is going to be a lot easier, obviously. Time frame, even better. But again, right now, I know you're seeing my screen. This is also a demo account. So the times that you will see will be contingent upon what time frame or what specific time zone you're in. So again, I'm obviously Pacific right now. So all my times are showing in Pacific. If you have issues when it comes to exporting data, or if you ask us, let's just say you call into support, say, hey, I need some information. I need to get some raw data just to verify. We might send you an Excel file, but that time is actually going to be showing in UTC. So all of our time frames is recorded in UTC, and that's actually pretty much everyone. But I believe as of a few months ago, because I did ask them to, as part of that export is to add the time zone of the user requesting. So I'll have to double check that, but at least you're aware that that the time difference is everything's recorded in UTC, so you can make that time difference of what you're looking for. Any other questions that I could answer before we break?
I think we're good.
Well, if there are no other questions, right now, what I would totally advise, if something comes up in the future, you have more questions, please, by all means, reach out to me. You can contact me either by my personal email. It's scotth@forcedbymojio. You could also contact us at customer success. Now, this is going to go to myself and my colleague, Nathan. He was hired on to help me with account management. He is very versatile. But that way, if I'm gone, you at least get an answer. And then obviously support as well. If I'm not available, or if you need more support standpoint, please, reach out. I'm here to help you all. I want you guys to be successful. Obviously, if you're successful, we're successful. So I don't want you to feel that you don't have a friend in the business here. So that's literally how I want you to think of me. So by any means, if you need to reach out, reach out. Email is usually the best for me. By all means, if you do call, please call. I can give you all my number if need be, and I apologize if you hear my darling feline in the background being very needy. But please reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer as quickly as I can, as in detail as I can. And there you go. I apologize. Yeah. Well, I will, in that case, it's perfect timing. It was a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you for joining. Like I said, next month, my plan is to go over maintenance. I will probably get that out here in the next couple of weeks. We'll put a note like we did last time on the dashboard as well. So if you're very interested of me going through that again, I'll be a little bit more slower and in more detail. But thank you all for joining, and I wish you all the best.